Hi, this is Michelle Keith. I'm sorry I cannot be on camera right now. I'm actually in transit. I'd like to open up the meeting. It's now 4 o'clock. I do need to take attendance. Michelle Keith, we have to say our names and then say we're here because of the Zoom status. Also, I'd like to remind everybody that this meeting is being recorded. So Michelle Keith, Chair, is present. Emily Michelle,
Emily Michelle Olmsted is present.
fantastic. Richard,
Richard Romero is present.
fantastic. So we can get started. I guess the first appointment is at 4, and it's Antonio Raposo and Paul Raposo, Plat 39, Lot 11 at 709 Russell Mills Road for a domestic animal permit regarding 30 chickens, 20 ducks, 1 peacock, and 12 geese. Chris Michaud, could you give us an update on the status of this particular application?
Sure, thank you.
Thanks.
So I did give the board a report on Friday with the information that we had on hand at that time. Since Friday, we finally got the revised inventory of animals that the applicant wishes to keep at 709 Russell Mills Road. That was received on May 13th. And that revised request is to keep 82 chickens, 48 ducks, 2 turkeys, 1 pig, 1 peacock, 9 doves, and 13 geese. In total, that's 155 animals. Now, this permit is before us because it arrived at the Board of Health through a complaint about loose animals. So upon our initial inspection, we did talk to the applicant about the need to keep the animals confined. We cannot have free-ranging animals. Even if a neighbor says it's okay, Dartmouth does not have a 6-mile-an-hour speed limit as we did 100 years ago. Russell Mills Road is a well-traveled road by a lot of inexperienced young drivers going to the high school. Last week, I did see uncontained animals in the backyard from the road. And more importantly, today I did see 2 Muscovy ducks about 25 feet from the edge of the road. We also know that in order to keep animals at this location where they're currently housed is going to ultimately require a permit and approval from the Dartmouth Conservation Commission. At this point in time, I am unaware of any approval or filing. I have seen correspondence that the consultant for the owner is ongoing with the development of what's called a notice of intent, which is the application to the commission for a permit for the activity, but it has not been granted. So with that being said, we don't know if the commission will grant the request or if the commission, or if that work is going to show added enclosures for the keeping of animals. So I do think it is extremely difficult right now for the board to act on this permit, because if we're looking at the limited areas that are on the property now that are enclosures, that is not enough space to keep 155 animals 24/7. So we need to see if more space is going to be provided and whether or not the commission will entertain that. So I think that, while I don't like to table things, I think we need about 45 days, no more than, to table this, to see how it plays out at the Conservation Commission, to see if there's any, if the activity is allowed, what level of activity, and then I think it's appropriate at that time for the Board of Health to readdress the request. It would be allowed for the board to do that because we're awaiting additional feedback that I really believe is instrumental to the issuance of our permit. If he doesn't get the approval from conservation, then our approval is really insignificant. And we do have a component in our domestic animal regulations about the need for the Conservation Commission review. But what I would just like to mention, my final remarks will be is about the loose animals. When we first went there over a month ago, we expressed that need that they have to be inside. Seeing the animals last week and then seeing the animals, the domestic fowl, out 25 feet from the street is extremely unacceptable. People will swerve off a road to prevent hitting a squirrel. We cannot be entertaining a license if someone is systemically non-compliant. We can, understand that people are human and they make mistakes, but seeing these animals out twice now, doesn't seem to be mistakes. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Okay, Chris, I'm just wondering, I know that if you have dogs and you have more than 4 dogs, you've got to go and you've got to get a kennel license. Is there some sort of limit or some sort of guidance that the town has established that, if you have, 20 ducks versus 100 ducks, are there any other types of mechanisms to oversee that?
So we do not have a density, a square footage,
Okay,
how many per animal. And, I know that's something that we've talked about internally, and it's always served to be problematic. And I always think back to a property in Bliss Corner that I inspected that had several horses, and they were some of the cleanest horses I've ever inspected, and the overall property was under 5,000 square feet. It was just 2 horses, but they were kept well.
okay, okay.
But with birds, the manure is a lot different and more difficult to manage.
Okay, so in this instance, it's not a matter of the number, it's a matter of the maintenance. Is the manure being, put into its proper section? Are they being kept off of the street in an appropriate, humane type of housing sort of units for the animals? Okay, I would like to give is the applicant here?
Yes.
Would you like to add anything to this? Would you like to say anything?
Well, we maintain the manure the way it's supposed to be done. The yard is nice and clean, and I believe we have plenty of room for the birds. Talking to the neighbors, they love everybody around. Besides one particular neighbor that does not like the birds, and other than that, everybody loves the birds. They don't mind sharing their pond, their properties. And the reason we have is because we went through the pandemic, and we had it for the kids, for the grandkids, the neighbors. Everybody loves to see the birds. And it's hard to keep everything locked up. Today, I let some of the birds out because with all this rain, and it made such a muddy area, so I let some of them out. I was there with them. So if he did saw some of the birds out, yes, it's true. But I was there. So, but there's plenty of room for all the birds.
Okay. Emily, Michelle, and Richard, do you have any questions?
I have one for Chris. So I see your logic on tabling this, given the matter, with Conservation
but
Commission.
I just wanted to give you the opportunity to ask any questions of Chris or to ask any questions of the applicant before we move to the motion to table.
Yes, I was gonna ask a question.
Okay.
Is that all right?
Yeah,
So,
sure. That's
Chris,
what I was asking. Go ahead.
So my question to Chris is, with that aside, and your concerns about the safety and the birds being, unpenned, is there anything that we as a board need to do today besides the tabling for this situation?
Well, I think the board, can emphasize the importance that they have to be kept indoors, and that the board can, when we get to the point where the board may be able to act, hopefully be able to act, then if there's been non-compliance with keeping the birds inside, then I think that's a finding for a denial. Because part of the reason why we're permitting the keeping of animals is for the protection of public health and safety. And the reason why we do not allow free-ranging animals is because of the threat to public safety. So, the birds were let out today because it was stated there was a problem with the enclosure from all the rain. There's a lot of animals in there. He said that he was watching them, but there were birds out 25 feet from the street. I have the pictures. I did send them to the board members a short while ago when I got back into the office, so you may not have had a chance to see those current pictures. So if the cage has issues with flooding, then, now is the time to work with the consultant. This is to the applicant, to maybe relocate the cage to an appropriate location. It is right up against the wetlands. Wetlands are wet, and the areas near wetlands in days like today will flood. This will not be the only rain event that we'll have like this. These do happen, occasionally. So, you should be working with your consultant for an appropriate location and an appropriate enclosure to satisfy the requirements of the Board of Health's regulations to protect the public safety and public health.
Okay, thank you so much, Chris. Emily, Michelle, do you have any other questions?
No, I agree with Chris. It's concerning and I
Okay.
would consider that.
Okay. Okay, Richard, do you have any questions?
Yes, I do have a question for the applicant. You do have over 150 animals and you say you're watching them. I kind of think it would be difficult to keep an eye on all of them. Not only is it for public safety, but also for the safety of the animals that, we got to be concerned of. I do agree with Chris that maybe you need to reconsider the location of where you're penning them and how you're maintaining them. That's also another key concern for me, at least. So, how do you keep an eye on all those animals? How do you maintain that?
Well, my birds don't fly. They don't. As far as I know, I never seen my birds on the street. They stay in the property. They go to the neighbor's property. They're okay with that. Okay, and today was a very downpour, rainy day, and the reason I let them out, not because it flooded, it's just because they get all dirty, and I personally, I love the birds. They potted me. I don't eat my birds, and they were all dirty, so I just let them out because at least they are on the open. They're not dirty. Especially the ducks, the geese. They love going in the water, and they clean themselves. The chickens, they not all come out. Most of it, the chickens, they like to stay on their little houses on top of the branches. Polly is the pig. He doesn't get out. He's closed in. I got the doves. They're closed in. Now it's mate season. All the chickens, they're on their eggs. There's nothing I can do. I try to get as much as eggs out, but chickens, they're that time of the year. But not all of it. I could control my birds. Some die, some don't. Last year I lost 80 ducks. The hawks eat some, coyotes eat some, possums eat some. Some die. There's nothing I can do. We have pretty good control. We keep everything nice and clean. We use the manure for the trees. We use manure for my house. They've been in my house several times. I don't think they saw any garbage around. We are near the wetlands. Yeah, it rains, it pours over there. Yeah, it gets wet a little bit. That's why I open up the gates. And we do plan to move the chickens out a little bit from where the waters are. Yes, I agree with Chris on that. But I don't think it's that bad of a case that I need to keep my birds, because we live in Dartmouth. Sometimes I see 20 turkeys. Sometimes I see 50 Canadian geese. What do you want me to do? There's farmland right next to us.
Yeah.
And they come to the pond next to the house. And they go to that lady that complained about my Canadian geese. And another way, my neighbor caught that lady shooting the Canadian geese. What do you want me to do? Call environmental on them?
Yeah.
That's the kind of people they are. I'm not like that.
Mr.
I love the
Raposo,
birds.
I think it's wonderful that you are enjoying the animals and you obviously care about them. I think that's fantastic. I'm gonna encourage you to please, between now and when you get things hopefully resolved with the Conservation Commission, to please
We're
listen
working
to
on that.
Chris. Please listen to Chris Michaud. Please listen to the Conservation Commission. Please do what
We
they
are.
say. Try to come up with some sort of enclosure that can safely keep them. We don't want anybody getting hurt. I know you would feel terrible
Well,
if somebody got hurt, you know? You
well,
seem to
my
be a very
geese,
kind man.
geese love water. At least the geese, you guys gotta allow me, let the geese go in the pond. I understand the Muscovies, some of the Muscovies like to fly, but I have not seen my ducks on the street. I have not, I'm sorry.
Yes, but we
All my
do need,
neighbors say the same thing.
yeah, we do need to keep them enclosed. So I encourage you to please listen to Chris Michaud, listen to the Conservation Commission, and please do what they ask so that we can resolve
We
this.
have,
So,
we've been aboard with them. We're doing everything that we have to do. You know, I've been working with several people. We've been spending couple of $1,000s to everybody, doing what we have to do. I'm learning things that I haven't learned before, you know. All this started with the pandemic, and
yes.
now this is all new to me.
Yes, we
No.
learn things new every day as board members here. I
Absolutely,
never
you
knew I
know.
learned so much about roosters as a board member.
Exactly. And now I fell in love with these birds.
Yeah,
This is, you know, now I'm learning, you know.
yeah. So I have faith in you that you're going to work with the town and do what you're supposed to do. I'm going to make if Emily, Michelle, and Richard are fine and they have no more questions to ask, is that true? Emily
No
and Richard, you're all set?
Yes,
Okay, and Mr. Raposo, I'm gonna make a motion to table this. Okay, pending
Okay.
what happens with the Conservation Commission. And once again, I strongly encourage you to work with Mr. Machad. So could I have a second
Absolutely.
for that motion, please? Thank
I
you so
s-
much, Mr. Raposo.
I
Okay,
second
thank
that
you
motion.
Thank you.
for the second. Okay, Michelle Keith votes yes to table. Emily, Michelle, how do you vote?
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. And Richard, how do you vote?
Yes, to table.
Thank you so much, Mr. Raposo. I hope you can get this
Thank you.
all situated. Take care.
Thank you.
Okay,
Bye-bye.
thank you. Bye-bye. Okay, so let's see here. We have 4:05. We are over. I'm sorry about that. It's an appointment for Jennifer Bertolato, Plat 32, Lot 73 at 842 Fisher Road, domestic animal permit. It is for 5 horses, I think. Chris, would you like to give us an update on the status of this?
At this time, I'd like to see if the person on the phone, person attending iPhone is Sandy Goslin.
Hopefully everybody can hear me. I'm here.
We can hear you.
So
Oh,
I've asked Sandy to attend the meeting today. She's our animal control officer and animal health inspector. I believe this is the first time you're having an opportunity to meet our newest board member, Mr. Romero, and likewise meeting Sandy. Sandy did
Sandy.
conduct an inspection at the property, and we have had fair amount of history with this property and horses. So with that, I'd like to ask if we could recognize Sandy.
Yes, Sandy, please. We would love to have an update from you on this particular application.
okay. So I went out with Ally Emerald from the Board of Health last Wednesday. We were to inspect the property for the keeping of the horses. Mrs. Bertolato was not there. Her sister was present. And while I am kind of a nitpicker when it comes to things around my barn and around a barnyard, I really do have to look at the overall areas of where the animals are. I do have to say I was a little disappointed. The stalls were not cleaned at all. There was quite a bit of manure in them. The pens were not clean, although they did have some spots where they could go where they weren't standing in, mud. The fencing, in my opinion, is not adequate. Unfortunately, you've got one of the horses is a large draft size horse. And we've had quite a bit of incidences where the horses have been getting loose. I'm not sure whether it's they're pushing on the fencing and busting through it, or somebody's leaving a gate open. All I know is in the last 2 years, we've had at least 5 incidences where these horses are running around the neighborhood. It's a very dangerous situation. I did advise Mrs. Bertolato's sister that I was not happy with the stalls. And then we had that really nasty storm the next day with all the hail. I just got to say, I was a little disappointed in that. I thought that, knowing that we were going to be there for an inspection, that they would actually have had the stalls cleaned, and they were not, it wasn't manure just from one day or an overnight. It was for probably over a week of manure sitting in there, in my opinion. With that said, we do have some outstanding tickets that have not been paid for the horses being loose in the roadway on other neighbors' properties, which Miss Bertolato did not show up to a magistrate hearing. And now it is going in front of the judge next Monday. And I would hope that she would pay those citations before she goes in front of the judge, because that can be a long, tedious day. And if she doesn't take care of that, it could end up as a bench warrant if she, in fact, does not show up at the courthouse to address the issue. I really cannot recommend a permit at this time, because I feel that they're not living up to their requirements as a stable owner, to keep things clean. And I'm really concerned with the fact that the animals are getting loose, the amount of times that they're getting loose. And I'm thankful that we haven't had something get hit by a car.
Yes, yes.
For the horses' sake, as well as anybody driving down that road. It's a very heavily traveled road. And it always seems like the horses are getting loose at dusk, So, I mean, at this time, I don't feel comfortable recommending the permit be issued. I think she needs to address a lot of things. And it wouldn't be fair to the horses for me to say, yes, everything is, fine and dandy over there, because in my opinion, it's not.
No, your job is to inspect and tell the truth, and we appreciate your candor. And thank you so much for continuing to deal with this unfortunate situation. Chris, do you have anything that you'd like to add?
Thank you. So I do not believe Ms. Bertolato is here with us. If you're here, please speak now. Okay, so Ms. Bertolato was duly notified of this hearing. She was also notified of the inspection, and we made arrangements around her schedule in which she was not present. Some of the members may recall last year, around October, we had Ms. Bertolato present to discuss our concerns with the fence. And at that time, she said that she would be moving. She didn't intend to be on the property after the end of the year, and that if she was, she would apply for a permit. We sent notices, and she was non-responsive. It was ultimately a citation that was served by constable that precipitated this application. And she says that she's moving still. Irrespective of whether or not she's moving, I think she's clearly demonstrated to me that the horses cannot be safely kept on this property, that they're repeatedly getting out several times per year, and excuses are excuses. There are, gates can be padlocked, chain closed if you're, excuses that someone is letting them out. You can build a better fence. large horses running on Fisher Road. I've seen the Ring doorbell camera with them running across the yard with cars speeding down the street. I do not want to face a reporter because a horse got struck. Worse yet, a horse got struck and someone succumbed to injuries as well. Hitting a draft horse is like hitting a moose. That can be a
Mhm.
fatal collision. So my recommendation to the board is to deny this permit and to provide a reasonable time frame, no more than 21 days to remove the animals from the property, even if that includes stabling. Any keeping of animals on that property after that time would be subject to full enforcement by the town, including daily citations and forwarding to town council for any and all remedies.
Thank you very much, Chris. Emily Michelle, do you have any questions?
Chris, if we follow that advice and go with removing the horses within 21 days, do we say that as a motion? Do we say that as a condition? How would we phrase that?
So you could deny the permit,
Mm-hmm.
and that would be adequate. And you could, you don't need to vote for the 21 days. That can be an informal discussion because essentially at that point, you've denied the permit. We've done our administrative task as a board. The 21 days is deference with enforcement.
Okay.
But you can also include that as well, so that when she would get her letter, she could see that it's a vote and if there was unity of the vote, and what the time frame would be. If you want it to be less, that's, the board's prerogative.
Do you have any other questions, Emily Michelle?
No.
Hello?
No.
Okay, okay. Richard, do you have any questions?
No, I do not. Just a comment that it seems like even with a permit that there would be such a disregard for the animals. Yeah, I think denial would be my choice.
Okay. Would somebody like to make a motion to deny this particular application?
Yes, sorry.
No problem. And Richard, one of the things I recommend is something that's been told to me professionally is that it's good for us to include findings in our motions so that way we're not seen as arbitrary and capricious as to why we act one way on one issue and not another. So the motion I was going to put forward would be that I move to deny the permit for Jennifer Bertolotto, plot 32, lot 73 at 842 Fisher Road for 5 horses, finding that the professional opinion of Dartmouth Animal Control Officer Sandra Goslin, as well as Chris Michaud, indicates that the conditions here are very unfavorable and even dangerous, given the at least 5 incidences of loose horses.
Okay, so we need a second.
I second.
Okay, fantastic. Michelle Keith votes yes. Emily Michelle, how do you vote?
Yes.
Richard, how do you vote?
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. That is done. Let's move on to the next item. Let's see here. Okay.
I'm sorry, Madam Chair, could I just say one other thing on this?
Oh, yes, what?
Just to echo what Chris said, is that now that we've denied it, I echo what he says as far as I think that the horses should be removed within 21 days.
Okay, I don't think we necessarily, as Chris said, need to take a vote on that.
Not a vote, but I thought he said it was part of the discussion. Did I misunderstand that?
I mean, did you want to discuss the number of days? Because I thought we were going to leave it to the board of Chris Michaud and the board's decision making as to whether or not they could get that animal, the 5 animals off the property within the 21 days, if they would need more time.
I thought we had to
Not sure what they're gonna
agree.
be
If we don't,
facing.
that's fine.
Yeah, Chris, I don't think we need to agree on that, do we?
Well, if there's any disagreement, I think now is the time for discussion. If these are the board's regulations, we are offering deference with enforcement. So if a board member believes that 21 days is too much or too little, then now is the time to express that.
Okay, personally, it would be ideal if it could be the 21 days, but I also understand that sometimes when dealing with humans, you don't necessarily get the response and you may need a little bit more time. We don't know what the situation is there with the occupants of that particular address, what's going on in their life. I 100% trust your judgment and your staff's judgment as far as if you needed more than 21 days. I don't feel like I necessarily have to say that it has to be within 21 days. I defer to your ability to administer this in an appropriate fashion. I'm not sure what's everybody else's thoughts.
I'm fine with the 21 days. I misunderstood in thinking that we needed to make that clear as a board as part of our denial.
Yeah, and I'm fine with 21 days too. I think that's appropriate. They have to focus on this.
Okay, so do you want it to actually happen within the 21 days? I'm fine with 21, but if Chris needs more time, I'm fine with that as well.
Same.
Okay, Emily Michelle?
Same.
Okay, good. So Chris, we trust you 100% to be on this and, you know, acting as you usually act, you know, on behalf of our town and our residents, keeping us safe. I appreciate, your dedication to the town.
Thank you.
So let's see here. We're going on to the next item here. Let's see. We've got, I think it's operational policies.
We have the
Chris?
minutes. The minutes are next.
I'm sorry?
Minutes of the prior meeting.
Okay, so can I get a motion to accept the minutes from the prior meeting?
I'll move to approve the minutes of April 10th, 2024.
Could I get a second, please?
I second that motion.
Okay, fantastic. Michelle Keith votes yes. Emily Michelle?
Yes.
Okay, and Richard?
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. Minutes accepted. So now we're going to be reorganization of the board, annual appointments and operational policies. Chris, do you want to speak to reorganization of the board?
Sure. Thank you. So I'm just going to give a brief overview of agenda item B, which is reorganization of the board for items 1 through 3, if that's okay.
Fine, perfect.
So this is an annual agenda item. The reason for this item is, you know, reorganization of the board, which includes selection of chair, vice chair, and soil board representative, is necessary because one board cannot bind another board. In other words, that the composition of a board after 2 years changes over even with the members, so nothing is binding beyond 3 years. We have our annual appointments, and this just satisfies making sure that everyone is duly appointed to do their job in case of any changes of staff, that we just throw this on there annually. If there was ever, you know, someone who was to question us about our authority, we have this annual appointment that we can reference that begins our enforcement. Otherwise, if by some chance, if we never did it, then are we acting without authority? Operational policies. So operational policies is to provide for administrative efficiencies on the routine day-to-day tasks of the board. Again, this goes back to enforcement and, you know, concern with, you know, people that might be adversarial. So in other words, you know, if the board doesn't grant us the ability to issue routine permits like a mobile food truck or the issuance of a well permit, then the alternative would be is that each and every one of those permits would have to come before the board as an individual agenda item and then have to be voted on individually. Without the administrative policy being voted by the board, if we were to issue those permits, you know, one could certainly argue that we were issuing those permits possibly without authority. I think it's best to be clear and to itemize it so that we don't end up with an issue where someone's challenging a permit because it was never itemized on the agenda. We also have spending. So there is Mass General Law with municipal financing, finances and accounting practices that does require any bill over $400 to either be voted by the board or to have the signature by the board's designee. So the board can designate an individual to come in and sign all the bills over $400, or the board can vote in an amount over $400 so that we can spend up to that and not have to have a signatory come in or put those bills on the board's agenda. So within the handout, you'll see a lot of listings of amounts for like the Humane Society, Billy Viveris, McKesson. Those are our big ticket expense items for the Board of Health and Animal Control. So, you know, the Humane Society, we utilize their services for, you know, lost dogs, cats. We use them also for some of our rabies work where they're going to be, you know, doing the specimen packaging and sending that out and getting it up to the state lab. Billy Viveris is the vendor that takes care of all of our deceased deer on the side of the roads and transports them to the Crapo Hill landfill. So that's why you see that. Other day-to-day functions and tasks, you know, which can include the ability to escalate enforcement to court. Certainly, we'll let you know about that if that happens. But there are some times, like you just heard from Sandy, where we're issuing a citation and then it doesn't get paid, and then we have to file in the court, and then that action can escalate for non-responsiveness by the defendant. And that's it. If there's any, you know, questions, if I was too brief, happy to answer anything.
Does anybody have any questions?
I think I follow.
I don't have any questions.
Okay. So Chris, I guess the first thing we need to do is select a chair and a vice chair of the board. That would take place, what would that be? Starting pretty much after this meeting through the next reorganization of the board would be next year around this time.
Yeah, it would start
So-
immediately upon the vote unless there was, just for, just to carry through. But, if there's a change in any of it, then yeah, it would be right after the vote.
Okay, so do we have to have official nominations or can we just express does it have to be officially nominated?
It does have to be motioned and voted.
Okay, that's what I thought. Okay, so I would like to nominate myself to continue as chair. I'm not sure if I will be running for reelection, but this would be my last year and I would like to continue in this capacity. How are the other board members feeling? Would they like to nominate themselves or?
I'm fine with that. I was going to suggest the same thing.
Okay, I'd like to just finish up, especially where I'd like to get to that COVID report and it'll be a nice feeling to have seen it through. And then, if I run for reelection, we take turns, and if I don't, there'll be somebody new coming in and you guys can figure it out at that time. So, Richard, what are your feelings? What are your thoughts?
I full agreement to that.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. So, Chris, I guess we have to have a motion on this, yes?
That is correct. And you could
Okay.
also include in that motion the vice chair and
Okay,
the representative to the soil board. You could.
Okay. okay, we can do it all together. Great. Emily, you are the current representative on the soil board, aren't you?
Correct, and I'm also the vice chair, so I would like to nominate myself, Emily Michelle Olmsted, as the vice chair and the representative to the soil board.
And I'm 100% okay with that. Richard, what are your feelings with that?
I second that motion. I agree.
Okay, you're okay? Okay,
Yes,
so
I
I'm
am
gonna make
okay.
a motion that Michelle Keith fill the position of chair and Emily Michelle fill the position of vice chair and representative to the soil board. Could I have a second to that motion, please?
I second that motion.
Fantastic. Michelle Keith votes yes. Emily Michelle, how do you vote?
Yes.
And then Richard, how do you vote?
Yes.
Fantastic. That's great. We're going to have a good year. Okay, so now we've got all the annual appointments. Can we do this all together, Chris, or?
That is correct.
Okay, so let's see here. The MDA are animal health inspectors. Okay, I'm making a motion to make annual appointments of the following. The MDA are animal health inspectors Sandra Goslin, Stacy Rebello Hardy, Tracy Martin, and Chris Michaud. The health and sanitary inspectors Donna Farias, Ariel Enos, and Ali Amaro. C, Director of Public Health, Chris Michaud. D, Public Health Nurse, Mara Reimer, RN BSN. And we need to find a Board of Health position to consult, but we don't have one right now. But I will include in the motion that it is our intent to add a Board of Health physician for consultation. Can I have a second for that motion?
I will second the motion.
Fantastic. Michelle Keith votes yes. Emily Michelle, how do you vote?
Yes.
Yes. And Richard, how do you vote?
Yes.
Okay, now we're back to the operational.
Madam Chair,
Yes, yes.
I would just like to add for the members, that I have reached out to my contact at South Coast Hospitals, and
Great. That's fantastic.
that, they're going to be working, to see if there's any physicians that would be interested. It's not uncommon for physicians to volunteer for, this sort of a role. And, it's going to take a few weeks though. So when we do have a name, I will bring that back as an agenda item.
That's dynamite. Excellent. Thank you so much, Chris. Appreciate that. So, are we ready to go to the number 3 operational policies?
Yes.
Hello?
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry.
Sorry. Chris, did you want to, walk us through the permit applications, the spending, the board signatory, all of that?
Only if you want me to, go through it. It's if there's any discussion on it, any concern. It's up.
Does anybody have any comments? Do you have any questions, Richard, on the procedures?
No.
Okay. Okay, so, Emily Michelle?
It's kind of so I understand. I mean, the way we've been going along makes sense too. And there's a reality that, we give a certain amount of time. And so we have expectations of how much time we spend in this meeting. We have talked at our last meeting about the fact that we should probably, as a board, come up with a consensus when it comes to IA systems and nitrogen. But that is something, Chris, that we could come up with at a different time, correct? We wouldn't have to decide that in this meeting.
No. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what we could do is if, we could have an agenda item on, board's regulations or, and/or, even just a policy on waivers and variances, and so that the public has an expectation. But that's certainly a new one that we would have to develop. And because, it's the board's vote, we definitely would need input to consolidate the that into a policy and then bring that back to the board from the individual members' contributions.
Okay, thank you.
Okie dokie. So, going to make a motion, I guess, to accept the operational policies and continue them as we have been functioning that are outlined on the agenda as A, permit applications, issuance and renewals, B, spending, C, board signatory for approval of bills, and D, other day-to-day functions and expected tasks. Do I have a second?
I second.
Okay. Emily Michelle, Michelle Keith votes yes. Emily Michelle, how do you vote?
Yes.
Okay. And Richard, how do you vote?
Yes.
Fantastic. This is great. Now we're going to see town meeting warrant articles. But Chris, we don't have the town warrant yet?
We have not been presented the warrant. That should be coming from the town clerk, I would imagine, early next week. But what we do know is that the charter committee so let me just kind of back up a little bit to,
Okay.
I'm talking in lingo so that everybody understands. So the town of Dartmouth has a charter. What the charter is essentially the constitutional, is kind of like the constitution of the town. It provides for the makeup of how we do business, how we're organized. So in other words, it prescribes the number of select board members. It provides which boards are elected. It provides for how staff and appointed officials are retained and hired. So with that being said, the current charter provides for certain elected boards. The Charter Commission has completed their review of the charter, submitted warrant articles to the town, to the select board, that have been voted on and are now being printed for distribution to town meeting members and to the town departments. One of their proposed changes is to remove the election for certain boards or committees and to turn them into appointed. And those would be the Board of Health, the Board of Assessors, the Library Board. And with that would also be the removal of the board's executive authority with staff. So in other words, that would get assigned to the select board. So the Board of Health would be an appointed board if this warrant article passes by 2/3 vote. It would still have to go to the general election and pass by a 50% majority. If it overcome both hurdles, then the Board of Health would move into the appointed status, requiring the appointment by the select board, and any future staff would then be hired and retained by the select board, and then working under the policy directive of the Board of Health. Now, the concern with that for the future of Dartmouth's boards is with the staff component, because the staff is essentially torn between two supervisors. So when your ultimate authority is the select board and you're serving under the policy directive of the Board of Health, if there was a difference of opinions on a controversial matter, that becomes very difficult for the staff out of fear for their job. Which way do I serve? Do I serve the board I'm serving under the policy directive, or do I serve the board that retains or hired me? And I can think back to a situation where the Dartmouth Board of Health inserted itself about 2011-ish or 12 maybe, into a very controversial project that the town was pitching that was going to bring all sorts of money to the town, and that the Alternative Energy Committee was embracing and working hard towards making a reality. They were proposing to site large wind turbines on the south end of Chase Road. And it was being looked at as, this is not going to cause any harm. But the Board of Health, through their elected members, instructed staff, the director, to look into the matter. And, with that being said, there was communications expressing concerns with some of the impacts that were starting to circulate from these large wind turbines in residential neighborhoods, be it noise and flicker. Interestingly enough, a lot of those and the ones in Falmouth ended up going non-operational. And I just saw an article where I guess it looked like they're going to rip them down. And I remember when some of those first issues started to succumb to Falmouth, we had a building commissioner that was on the Board of Appeals in Falmouth, Paul Murphy, and he told the former town administrator about it. And it was funny because he forgot how much criticism they were lobbying at the Board of Health for the board's expressed interest to slow it down and let's look at this from all angles. And he said, good thing we didn't get into those. So, I think that was actually, I hate to say it, a win for the people, because, if the board had remained silent because of a strong executive pyramid, then there's no doubt in my mind, I was around then. I remember seeing how much they wanted those wind turbines because they were going to bring a lot of money to the town on paper. They would be there today. Whether they'd be spinning or not, I don't know. But I think that is a good example as to, why at times it can be important to have devices in government.
Chris, when this comes before the town meeting, are you going to be speaking to this?
I would only speak if the board had a consensus.
Okay,
And the board, and there was no member from the board present at the meeting. I would then speak on behalf of the consensus of the board. I
Would you like us to be there?
I would not speak as an individual. I do think that it would carry significantly more weight if a board member conveyed any concern as a board member or as a board with this.
Okay. Okay. I just for the record, I think that keeping the Board of Health as an elected board is very important. Consolidating power to the select board is not necessarily good for the town. The select board has had its traditional purpose and Board of Health has had their traditional purpose. And they're, it's important for that power to be divided, for the people to have a say in who they want to be on the Board of Health. I think that we don't have a lot of issues right now in the town with regard to the board, Chris, because I think you do such a fabulous job. The board tries to be fair to the public. You have an incredible staff that's very dedicated. So, we don't have a contentious situation here, but the people still have the chance to vote for whomever they'd like to be on the board. And I think that's very important to preserve. The select board, they get their votes. Okay. And they have their purpose and they have their mission, but the Board of Health, I think personally should be separate. I'm not sure. Emily, Michelle, and Richard, what are your thoughts?
I agree with the separation. I'm rather ambivalent about election versus appointed. With the downside that I knew from my situation is it does take extra work to go through the process of getting signatures for an election. But again, I wouldn't fight on that one. I agree with the separation for sure.
Yes, because if it becomes an appointment, we've lost the voice of the people in selecting who they'd like to be on the board.
Yeah. Fair enough.
It also invites a lot of backroom deals, and the public not having a chance to have a say, so you can get, the power consolidated and then it becomes a whole group of people, Jim saying, who are controlling the town, that the people that live in the town don't necessarily have the chance to get rid of if they so seek, if they so want to. Richard, what are your feelings?
I
Your
do agree
thoughts?
with I do agree with that. It's part of the checks and balances.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
I think it's important to have in town, and like you said, if the town disagrees with a particular board member, then that's a term that's ending. So
Yeah, and it's a short term. It's only 3 years.
yes.
It's not a long time. Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, this is great that Chris, we all appear to be in agreement. Do we need to have some sort of vote on this, Chris?
So town meeting is June 4th. It begins during the day. It starts at 9 a.m. And, the article is, I have not seen it, but I've heard that it's buried at the end of the meeting, Article 20 or later. So, is there a member that would be able to attend, or it's going to be a long town meeting?
Do you have, when you say end of the meeting, rough estimate for time?
Yeah, so I may have a better idea once I see the articles. We've been finishing town meeting about 27 articles before around 12:30 for the last 2 years. This year with the charter changes and I think there's some zoning articles that could elicit more discussion. So I'm expecting that we could possibly break this year for lunch, and they're not going to take these. I can't say they won't, but the moderator has been extremely firm with keeping the order. So
Good.
my expectation is that it'll be business as usual, and that these articles, if they're at the end, they'll be at the end. So it'll be sometime, 11:30. If I had to forecast right now, 11:30 or later.
And it's in person.
Yes.
I mean, I'll make sure that I'm there, Chris, Emily, Michelle, if you could, Richard, if we could all be there, I think that would be
Mhm.
even better.
Well, if you're not town meeting members, I guess, I'd have to think about that for quorum.
Well, no. I mean, I'm not a town meeting member anymore, but we do have a right to speak if somebody else speaks up and asks for us to have a say. And I think too, as elected members, we can speak to this.
Yeah, I'll double check that with town
Yeah.
council. You're not talking about a business matter on a particular application of the board. It's more of an overall legislative matter of the town, but I'll double check that with Anthony.
Yeah, double check with that. That would be great, Chris. But I'm pretty certain from my time, I was like on it for like 10 years. There, you can petition for somebody, if an existing town meeting member would like somebody to be able to speak, they can ask for that. I'm pretty certain of that.
And I'm fairly certain that, someone's going to ask, is anyone here from the Board of Health on this? Because it'd be a crying shame to see such an important aspect of the town just immediately rush to a vote. And it doesn't matter if this is library or Board of Health, to change the composition and how, government is formed should always invoke some debate and discussion at least. So,
Agreed.
I would hope.
I mean, I'll be there, Chris, and you know what I'm saying? I can check too and see what that rule was, because I remember
And I know that the assessors, because I've already heard this directly from an assessor, is that I expect that there'll be some discussion on that item. So I don't know if, what they've done is they've done an a la carte from what I've heard. And what I mean by a la carte is it hasn't been batched into one warrant article.
good.
It's,
That's good.
It's, it's assessors, then it's Board of Health, then it's libraries, and then there's actually a charter change with the, some of the authority of the Board of Public Works.
I remember there was one town meeting that this woman was here from North Dartmouth and wanted to speak on an issue. And because she wasn't a town meeting member, she was very upset and she was very fretful. And at the time I was a town meeting member, and I said to her, what is it that you'd like to convey? And I got up and I spoke what her opinion was, because she was so frustrated. And later on, Joe Toomey said to me, Michelle, you could have just asked. You know what I'm saying? For her to be, she could have been able to speak on her, but he was telling me there was a parliamentary rule that would have allowed her to speak if I had moved to do that. So, I mean, unless they've changed things, I'm pretty certain if there's an existing town meeting member that is willing to let you speak, you know what I'm saying, that there's some sort of motion or something that can be done to allow that. Outside of the fact that we're elected officials, and if the issue's about the board, I think we naturally should be allowed to express an opinion.
Okay.
So I mean, it'd be great if everybody could be there. I mean, that's, to me, it shows that, like, I know life is hard. I mean, God knows what could happen in my life that day that I might not be able to be there. You never know. But if we could, I think it would be great.
I'll have to check with my work. I'm not sure that I can promise that at this moment.
Yeah.
Same, but I will
Okay.
make every attempt.
Awesome. That's fantastic. And Chris, we know that you've got it no matter what, but it's good for you to have some backup there, Do you need us to vote on this so that you can say that this is our opinion or these are our thoughts?
Sure, that would be good.
Okay, I'm going to make a motion that the current elected members of the Board of Health think that the Board of Health should remain an elected position with the Board of Health staff reporting to the Board of Health and not the Select Board. Can I have a second?
I second that motion.
Okay, awesome. And Michelle Keith, I vote yes. Emily Michelle?
Yes.
Yes, fantastic. And Richard?
Yes.
Fantastic. That's great. And now, Chris, is there anything else that we have to address for the town meeting? Or the town
So
charter?
the only other item I'd put on the agenda, just to give the board an update, is with respects to our operating budgets. And that I was advised, I haven't seen it in print yet, but I was advised by the town's finance director that our request for added expense funding was included for both animal control and Board of Health. So
Okay,
that's good news.
excellent. Yeah, very nice. So we're all set then with this, but nobody has any other questions on this part C of the town meeting warrant articles?
No.
Okay, awesome. Okay,
No
so
questions.
why don't we go to the final part, which is D, the carryover accrued time. Chris, do we need to read this into the record?
All you would have to do is, because it's just a formality and it's allowed by right, of the collective bargaining agreements, is just to, vote to approve, the carryover.
But we don't have to say every single,
You do
how
not.
many hours each person. Okay, fantastic. So does somebody want to make a motion to carry over the accrued time?
I move to allow the Board of Health staff to carry over the accrued time as detailed in the agenda.
And I second that motion.
Fantastic. Michelle Keith votes yes. Emily Michelle, how do you vote?
Yes.
And Richard, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Do we have any old business?
None.
Fantastic. And I love this new item, Chris. Any item not known 48 hours in advance. That is fantastic. Is there anything that we need to address under that?
Nothing, no emergencies have arrived. So nothing on my part.
Okay. So, I guess we're in a position where we can get a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn the Board of Health meeting.
Fantastic. And it's only 5:01. Yes. Okay, I second that motion. Michelle Keith votes yes. Emily Michelle, how do you vote?
Yes.
And then Richard, how do you vote?
Yes.
Fantastic. So everybody be well. Hopefully we'll get a little bit of sunshine, huh?
I hope so.
I will email the town meeting warrant once it's sent to me. I'll send it to all the board members individually.
Dynamite. Thank you so much, Chris.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you,
Thank you.
everybody. Take care.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone. Till
Bye-bye.
next time.
Yep. Bye-bye.